I'll show you a widow who grieves much. And I'll tell you this, she loved much. That's why she hurts much. That's why she hurts much. Love can make tough men cry. It can make a tough woman drop to her knees in love and acceptance. Love is a way of enduring pain. Love suffers long, doesn't it? We never stop loving our children, do we? We never stop loving them. And when you get grandchildren, you think there's no more capacity to love than your children. But I'm telling you, it suffers long, because there's a lot more in there to give. Love suffers long. How many women stick in marriages that are loveless? Because they loved. They suffer long. They know what it is to have bruised and broken hearts. I want to tell you today, wherever you're at, past, present or future, when your heart's hurting, he knows all about it. See, my Bible tells me that he bottles all of our tears. He keeps count of our tossings. And he so loved the world that he died for you. He so loved the world that he died for you. Tough men cry. Don't ever think this is a sermon for just women. Tough men cry. You see an angry man and you'll know a tough man, but you'll know a hurting man. Because behind anger is so often vulnerability, pain, wounds, insecurity, hopelessness, not knowing what to do, peer pressure. There's so much there, but tough men can have bruised and damaged hearts as well. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. How often do we forget the magnitude? Absolute magnitude. See, my granddaughter sings, "Grandma, it's so deep, you can't go over it, and it's so high, you can't climb up it." She gets all the words in, out and back to front, but it's just beautiful. She says, "It's so wide, Grandma, enormous." Enormous. Do you know that enormous love this morning? Can you be vulnerable enough in a sermon, in a church, because God has called you to this place this morning? Can you be vulnerable enough to say, "I need his love. I need that Saviour's love"? There's never a day in my life where I don't know, or I don't need to know, that I'm loved with everlasting love. It's good stuff, isn't it? See, I am loved with everlasting love. I am loved with everlasting love. It's amazing, isn't it? That God has got this infinite capacity to love. Do you know why? Not because you're a worship leader, not because you're a singer, not because you're a DIY player or a piano player. He loved because he chose you. He loved because he chose you. So it don't matter to me whether you've got 1 talent or you've got 50, because you've no more love than she's loved. See, people come into life and they can be so cocky sometimes, can't they? Maybe that's too blunt. Forgive me. They can be so cocky. And I think, you know what, mate? You ain't loved no more than I'm loved. Because I loved with everlasting love. Not based on talent. Not based on approval. Do you know he'll never love you any more or any less than he loves you today? Do you get that? It's not based on what you do. It's based on what he's done. Oh, come on, somebody. Come on, give me some feedback. You're grateful that you're loved with everlasting love this morning. Are you grateful that you're loved with everlasting love this morning? Are you grateful that you're loved with everlasting love this morning? My Jesus loved me. See, Paul prayed that we may know the height and the depth of his love. And I am praying this morning that you would know the height and depth of his love. See, he loved you when you were wicked. I'm going to be very, very blunt this morning. He loved men when they're in nightclubs. He loves them when they're sleeping around. He loves women when they're looking for love in a hopeless place. My Jesus paid it all. My Jesus paid it all. God help us to get off our pedestals. God help us to get off our pedestals. He loves the alcoholic. Do you know why they turn to that stuff and why they turn to drugs? Because they're looking for love in a hopeless place. Because they're looking for that need They're looking for that compassion. They're looking for that Jesus that we so often take for granted. My God, can you feel his love this morning? Can in this season of Easter, can you come alive? Can you come alive and share the love of God? The love of God that is so enduring. The love of God that is enduring, loves long, that suffers much, that paid it all. You see, my Jesus paid it all. My Jesus paid it all. He's passionate. He's passionate. Do you know, I want to tell you this morning, there were some people. I felt God really lead me this week. I'd got so much and different things to bring. But I can't help it. God took me again and again back to something in my sermon. You see, there were plenty of people. We may come to a second person. I don't know. We'll see where the time goes this morning. There were the Marys, weren't there? There were the mothers. But you know, there were the disciples. There were the disciples. There was Peter, wasn't there? He denied Jesus. He'd lived with Jesus for 3 years. Do you know his heart was broken? Do you know that? His heart was broken. Forget the facade when people backslide. God can see right underneath of where they're at. And I want to tell you, we forget sometimes that they still need Jesus. They still need Jesus. There were broken people. There were imperfect people. There were mothers. There were brothers. There were broken people around the cross. But I want to bring you to a man this morning. I don't know really why, but again and again, God took me back to this. And I want to tell you, there was a man called Judas rather, and his heart was broken. We'll come to him as we go along, but I want to tell you, I want to get that in your head this morning. Judas had a broken heart. We don't think of him in that way. The first thing we think of Jesus is betrayal. When a man leaves his wife, we think betrayal. When friendships break up, we think betrayal. Betrayal is an incredible emotion. Have you ever felt betrayed by someone? A friend that you thought would be around for years, but they so easily drop you. Just like that. Rejection comes just like that. Moving on, the parting of the ways. Bitterness comes in because of a mistake that was so often made, because of thoughtlessness. Most of us, when we think of Judas, we think of him as a betrayer. Think of him as somebody who betrayed our Lord. Do you know, we can get so angry and disappointed with people in life, can't we? We get so angry, disappointed with people in life. So I want to bring this right down to you this morning. Who have you been angry with? What are you angry with this morning? Where do you feel betrayed? I have heard it in churches so often. They don't feel loved. They don't feel this. They don't feel the need was met. They're hurting. They're hurting. But you know, their need wasn't met. But they didn't know who could really meet their need. They didn't really grasp the fact that Jesus still loved them. And he paid it all. And the church still loves them. But we're a bunch of human misfits. We're a bunch of people saved by grace. See, Judas sold Jesus out. He went out in the night and he betrayed him. Occurred to me how much goes on in the night. How much ruffles round your thoughts in the night. Well, you might feel betrayed and you might feel alone and you might feel rejected. You might feel forgotten and you might have a few bruises here and there. How much sin goes on in the night. So much goes on in the night, doesn't it? Burglars go out in the night mainly, not always. So much goes on in the night. But you see, Jesus is watching in the night. He's watching. He's aware in the night. Then maybe when we think of Judas, you know, Jesus broke bread with Judas and he said he was going to betray him to all the, said someone was going to betray him to all the disciples. Can you imagine the uncertainty in that room? Can you imagine how they felt that there were 12 of them and one in the midst was going to betray them? One in the midst wasn't going to reach up to the measure expected. Gosh, can you imagine the tension in the room, them looking around? Who is it? Who is it? Who is it? Can you imagine the uncertainty, the tension? Can you imagine how Peter breathed a sigh of relief when he gave him a piece of bread? But you know, I want to tell you, he gave a piece of bread to Judas. My Jesus knows it all. He knew Judas was going to betray him, but he still broke bread with him. He still broke bread with him. You see, we are required to share the love of God. We are required to bring the grace of God to people's lives. Jesus knew his betrayer was in the room, but he still shared bread with him. That moves me. That moves me, you know, that we need to love people. We need to love people. I have seen love break the hardest heart. I could go places with that. But I do sit in positions when I have seen love break the hardest of hearts. When they ask you, why do you care? Why do you speak respectfully to me? Because I want to be like Jesus. I want to do it the Jesus way. If you hurt me, I will bless you. That's hard, isn't it? Come on. Come on, church. It's hard sometimes, isn't it? But you see, I want to bless where I've been hurt. I want to love where I've been betrayed. I want to show people how to do it the Jesus way. Do you know, I tell you this story goes on. Maybe it's me being Mrs. Softy in my old age. But you know, I broke for Judas. I broke for him. I broke because that was somebody's boy. That was somebody's boy. We have men and women who commit suicide. Suicide rates in this country are unbelievable in young men. We lived in Cumbria and in Barrow-in-Furness. Do you know it has the highest suicide rate in Europe? I tell you, my heart used to break for young men. You would think it was so beautiful, so scenic, and it was. But they're so isolated. It's so macho. They hold themselves together, family units. And when they do something that brings shame to the family, they are hopeless. They are hopeless. But you know, every time, I tell you, I don't know why I'm going here this month, but I feel to go here. I feel to labour this. My two children, their best friends, have both committed suicide. My daughter had a picture of her very best friend at a wedding. She still grieves for stuff now. You know, people hurt. It wasn't clever that Judas committed suicide. God give us a heart of compassion. If we get anything out of the Easter story, can we go and tell the message that God so loved the world? That man, he may not be what you dreamed of, but God so loved the world. That woman, she may be not what you expected, but God so loved the world. That teenager, you may be frightened of where they're going to end up. If you want to ask me how to fix your problems, I don't know, but love them. Love them. Just love them. Love them. Tell them every day. Send them a text. Tell them they're loved. And they're loved by you, and they are loved by God. They are loved. God help us to love the world. How did you feel when you were in a class and something had been stolen, or something had gone on, or you'd been in the office? You knew that the boss knew. She looked right at you and right across. How did Judas feel? How did the disciples treat Judas? My God, may we be a church that shows grace. May we be a church that shows grace. I would have squirmed. I would have squirmed. Sometimes when my kids were little, you know, I remember a really funny scenario with Emmy. And her and her best friend, Gracie Lou, they'd taken some sweets out of my pocket, so I asked them about it. And they said, no, we don't do that, Mummy. We don't do that, Lizzie. They were so cute. They don't. And then they went, but she did it. She did it. They just blamed each other. You know, it's hard to keep a straight face sometimes, and you just want to pick them up and hold them and say, you can have all of them, because that's me. You can have all of them. But we squirm, don't we, when Jesus puts the finger on our lives. Where would you squirm this morning if Jesus put your finger on something in your life? I'm so glad I don't come to church and it's up on the screen every week what I did. What I did. But Jesus was known as the betrayer. Sometimes we know her as the prostitute, the alcoholic, the drug taker. God help us not to name people, but to see them for their real name, to see them with the name that Jesus has for them. So the sigh of relief, and maybe we can take a sigh of relief this morning. He's washed as white as snow. He's washed as white as snow. The only time we hear about about Judas is at the end of his story, sadly. No, but maybe that's the way it's meant to be in the Bible. But what about those times when he saw the miracles with Jesus? What about those times when he served his brothers and sisters? What about those times when he ministered to the other disciples? What about when he'd been fishing and done life with them? You know, we can make a snap judgment sometimes, can't we? We can make such a snap judgment about people. They did life together. They did life together. These Judas was two people with tension. And I believe that we both all hold a bit of tension in our life. You see, we've all had privilege. And we've all been betrayers sometimes, haven't we? Maybe we've not been as faithful. Maybe we've not been as kind. Maybe we've not been as patient. Maybe we've spoken disloyal words or negative words. We get it so wrong sometimes, we see it. But you know, this man was two parts. He was two parts. Sometimes we just don't see the whole of people in our lives and we judge on one thing. Jesus appears in the 4 Gospels and he appears there 20 times. 9 times he's identified as the traitor, as the one who betrays Jesus. And 9 times he's identified as one of the chosen. Do you want to tell you this morning that you are one of the chosen? Don't you just label yourself on what might have gone wrong in your life. Don't you forget the times when you did good. You see, when you were hungry and you fed somebody, Jesus saw it all. When you were thirsty, and when your kids were in need and you put your hands in your pocket, he saw it all. See, we're all the whole sum of it, and we all hold tension in our lives. And I want to speak love to you that hold tension in your life. Do you ever love somebody but you're really angry with them? I have loved people but felt really angry with them, really hurt by them. It's the tension of human nature, isn't it? But Jesus paid it all. He knows all about it this morning. So I ask you, what did Judas feel the day when he was chosen? What did he feel when he was numbered amongst the 12? You see, you might not feel like one of his disciples this morning, but I want to tell you, you're numbered. You're chosen. He knows your name. He's got you as part of the team, and he wants you as part of the team. You may not be the big people or the head of the house or whatever, but he's got you as part of the team. I'm telling you, if your thumb's broken or your toe's broken, you know about it. He's got you as part of the team. So what do you feel like when he says to you, Janet, Denise, May? What do you feel like when he reminds you, you're chosen? You are chosen. You're what I paid it all for. What did it feel like when he said, Judas May? Do you know God is calling you by name today? He's got something for you today. And he knows your ups and he knows your downs. He knows when you get it right and he knows when you get it wrong. He knows when you get it wrong. But he's calling you today by name. In whatever season of life you've got it. We think callings are just for in our 40s, 30s, 40s, whatever. I want to tell you, in your 60s and your 70s, ladies and gentlemen, you are still called and chosen by the Lord. He's still got work for you to do. So what were his hopes and his dreams for Judas when he was called? What excited Judas about Jesus? What was the promise that he sought? Promise of those dreams that he sought when he followed Jesus. What was entrusted to him when he followed Jesus? God has entrusted things to you this morning. He's entrusted things to you this morning. Wherever you're at, whatever your lifestyle, God will still entrust things to you. He will entrust things to you because he's chosen you and he's calling you by name. We've all been entrusted with something. Entrustment comes before betrayal. Always comes before betrayal. You look at a marriage, they entrusted themselves to one another. Look at a relationship. You look at friendships. You look at joining a church and that commitment. You make an entrustment. You make a commitment. Where's your trust vulnerable this morning? Promise and risk are always entwined together. I want to ask you, what's your promise from God this morning? And what's the risk that comes with that promise this morning? They both come at the same time. It's not one and it's not the other. I think the story of Judas is the story of you and I too. He's an image of ourselves. He holds before us the tension of life, of relationships, of struggles, of fulfillment, of failure, of admiration, affirmation, of disappointment, of his appointment. He holds it all because we all have so much within our own lives. With what have you been entrusted this morning that you're not being faithful? Where are you betraying this morning? Your hopes, your dreams, your promises? Where are you not entrusting that trust and respect to somebody that just needs that grace this morning? I want to ask you, recognise the complexities and the contraindication that constitutes our lives. Recognise the Judases. They're much more common, much more real within us than we ever like to admit. Let's not forget something about Jesus. I find this amazing. Do you know Jesus washed the feet of Judas? He served him, gave him bread, and he washed his feet. Who might you need to just reach out to this morning and continue to love them? Just continue to show grace to them. We all have complexities. Judas had a seat at the table with Jesus. Oh, I'll be very vulnerable. When I was at Bible college, God gave me this scripture, I think it's in Isaiah 58, about sharing our food with the hungry and various things. I had such a convoluted impression of that until I was heavily pregnant with, I think it was with Emmy, it was our first child. God brought that scripture right back to us. We had very, very little money, if I'm honest. We were living by faith by the hour and by the day out of Bible college. We'd done it all for 3 years. These people came to our house, these two lads, they came to our house in need. When I went up to get Joe and bring him down and ask him to wait there, now bear in mind I was hungry, you're ravenously hungry at 9 months pregnant. They'd nicked the telly and nicked the only cheese sandwiches we had for dinner that day. I tell you, share your food with the hungry. Sometimes it's challenging, isn't it? Ministry isn't always glamorous and always what it might look up front. But you know, Jesus has asked us to share our bread with the hungry. I love the fact that we do Heaven's Kitchen or the Hub. I love the fact that people come and, you know, people come to the centre and they look as if they've got it all together. Or mums come for counselling, we can just leave a bag of groceries there. You can bring some of those if you want, because we'll share it with the people. Please don't just bring pasta and beans. We love it, but the place is exploding with enough beans to blow the place up. bring what people may need. Yesterday I was privileged enough just to give somebody some toothpaste. This lady said to me, "How did you know?" I said, "Well, funny enough, I just felt it there, that it was toothpaste that you needed." She said, "I've been praying for toothpaste for 3 days." A Christian. Altogether up front, you would not have a clue. But she needed toothpaste. Somebody may just need a hug in this place this morning. They may just need kindness. You see, he can melt the hardest heart of stone. He will run a wall and scale it to run over you because God loved the world. God loved the world that he gave. I've already said the outcome of this story is that Judas committed suicide. You see, there's no turning back then, is there? I wish Judas would remember that he was a forgiving God. Do I think Judas could have been forgiven and restored? I do. You see, Moses had anger issues. Peter had only just lopped off a man's ear with temper in the week of the Passion at Calvary. Got angry. I look at Joseph. He's full of confidence, full of pride sometimes. I don't know, was it pride? Was it just that calling of God? But you know, David murdered men. There was the shepherd and there was the lion in the same man. I look at Moses and he said, "I can't speak. I'm full of insecurities." You see, we forget that God loves us. He's not disappointed with you. He's not disappointed with you because he said he formed you in the womb. He knows all about you. It says in my Bible that he knew one of your days before ever of them were. So he knows where you're at and he knows what you've done. He's not disappointed. He thought you were worth it. He thought you were worth it. So what do we learn from this morning? What do we learn from this? I want to tell you, we learn that Jesus' blood can make the foulest sinner clean. Excuse me, you can sit there, but I just need to do a dance. Woohoo! I am so glad that Jesus' love can make the foulest sinner clean. Ooh, we let that come alive in you this morning. We let that come alive in you this morning. Jesus' blood. You might feel like you've let your family down. You may feel you've not been the dad that you should have been, the mum that you should have been, the daughter that you should have been. But you're not a disappointment to him this morning. You are not a disappointment to him this morning. And you're not responsible if somebody's taken their lives. That's the place they were at. But if only they had known hope. If they had known how many people cut themselves and hurt themselves in this day and age because they don't know where else to take their pain. If you're hurting this morning over parents, over grandchildren, if you're hurting over friendships, I want to tell you this morning, will you take your pain to Jesus? I feel there's an intensity here this morning. I can sense it amongst you. But some of you are at the edge of leaving a church with disappointment. Will you take your pain to Jesus? Will you come and get some ministry? Will you come and be prayed for? Will you come and realise Friday's come, but Sunday's on its way. Friday's tough, but Sunday's on its way. Don't do a snapshot of the day. Hang in, hold on, because he loves you. Jesus paid it all. Friday's rough, but Sunday is coming. Your disappointment can be his appointment. Your guilt, your shame, your broken heart, he can hold it today. I want to finish with a poem. And then we're going to sing. We're going to sing a song. We're going to sing and we're going to worship. Thank God I might have finished 10 minutes early today. That's an Easter miracle in itself, but we're going to worship. It says, I was regretting the past and I was fearing the future. Suddenly my Lord was speaking. My name is not I am. He paused. I waited. He continued. When you live in the past with its mistakes and regrets, it's hard because I'm not there. My name is not I was. When you live in the future with its problems and its fears, it's hard because I'm not there. My name is not I will be. When you live in the moment, it is not hard because I am here. My name is I am. You let the great I am minister to you this morning. What's some more when I could have gone on and talked about Simon Peter, another apostle that denied Jesus, and Jesus went and had breakfast with him. But I'm not going to go there. I'm going to ask, will you let Jesus minister to you this morning? Will you take just something out of what I've said this morning, if it's just one sentence? But I want to say to somebody this morning, hang on, because Friday's rough, but Sunday is coming. There is hope when you're losing hope. There is hope. There is complexities in life, but never stop loving. Jesus says we have to love ourselves that we might be able to love other people. Love them like you love yourself. Can you love yourself this morning? Can you be kind to yourself? Can you know that he has loved you with an everlasting love? I'm going to ask, we're going to rise and sing. If Amber's around, she's got a song that we're going to play. We're going to sing a different version of the song that I played when we broke bread. And it's